a fourth member sitting here today. Special guest. So cheers and welcome Charlotte to the Hue Crew.
Thank you.
Wow,
Thank you
cheers.
for having me.
Well, hey, you know what? And I know, no word of a lie, Charlotte has actually come out to 2 or 3 shows, and you've had fun. You brought your daughter and her friends, the last one. And you know what? I've waited this long to have you on, but I know this conversation is going to be so good. So let's just say Charlotte finds the good in everyone. Sorry, Susie, there is someone just like you out there. I know, someone just like you. But seriously, you're twin. No, but she really does. Yeah. But I think her journey to being where she is now is part and parcel of who she is. You're going to share some really hard life experiences with her daughters and where she is now with robynpriest.com, Live Your Truth. She is the momager.
Yes, I am the mental health momager. And Robyn is the chief nonconformist of our company. We have great names for our titles.
Right on.
Yes. Awesome.
Lots to live up to.
Super. I mean, so we'll get into the whole website and online, and you brought a special guest who we will meet momentarily. But I think for right now, Charlotte, if you can share your story with Susie and Rana and all our listeners and viewers out there.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So if we had met 10 years ago and you would have said to me, in 10 years, Charlotte, you're going to be sitting here talking about mental health, I would say, no, that's not my world. Yeah, you're nuts. That's not my world. I was happily with 2 young daughters, and I sat on a bunch of boards in the city and supported I worked with my husband at the time and in real estate, and I had a really great life. And but looking back, there was lots of signs that, life wasn't as perfect as it was. My oldest, and I always like to say, children don't come with an owner's manual. So
No, they don't.
No.
So she, early on, she, I would take her to school in the morning, a happy child, when she was little, and I'd get a call about 10:30 in the morning, and can you come back to school because, she's really upset and we can't settle her. And you look back and that was, she had high anxiety, but, the school said, oh, she's a visual learner and she's just really sensitive. And
what age was that, Charlotte?
it started, kindergarten, grade 1. And so what happened was I ended up volunteering at the school because I was going back 4 times, a week. So I might as well stay.
Right.
And it gave me, I love to fundraise. And so I said, okay, I'll do your gala and, I might as well be here and help, and if she needs me, I would check in. And but like I said, she's my first child, so you're just thinking, okay. And but at home, she had tons of confidence, but just at school, it just wasn't, as comfortable as she could have been.
Yeah.
And then in middle school, she got bullied, and it was bullied through exclusion, and it was real trauma for her. And trauma looks different to everybody. So from trauma for one of us, can be totally different. And I always like to stress that no one can judge, how a person is feeling in that situation. And for her, it was devastating. And that really huge change in her. She went very dark. She started to become very withdrawn. Wouldn't go out. I always talk about she'd have a hoodie on and a dark makeup, and she would sit just like everything about her was not recognizable, and saying to the doctors, this isn't my child. Like this really isn't my child, and oh, this is teenage, normal, and but everything inside of me was
in your
saying,
gut was just like, no, that's not it. Yeah.
So I talk a lot about, go with your gut.
Absolutely.
You have to, and you're the best advocate for your child as a mom. And it's a fine line between being called a helicopter mom or overprotective mom, or you're like too much emotionally involved. But when everything's telling you that there's a problem, and there was a problem. So, she chose some quite scary coping strategies. So she was a cutter, and you know, just whatever she could to get that pain to stop.
Charlotte?
Middle school it started.
Okay, so like 7, 8, is that middle school? Like
yeah, no,
grade
it was
7,
no,
I
it
should
was
say.
like 5, 6, 7,
Okay,
like
okay.
those hard years. So you know, you've
those
got
are
this
tough, yeah.
part where they're saying it's hormones and it's like just
Yeah.
teenage angst and.
And it's that plus other things,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
And so, so what happened was, you start trying to navigate the system here, and you know, you start asking your doctor and your school counselor, like, what can we do? And there's a whole bunch of shame that goes along with this because as a parent, you think, how could I have fucked this kid up so
Yeah.
bad? And excuse my language,
No,
but
it's
you
true.
do.
Yeah.
Like,
Just
you're
that
just
feeling.
like, oh, because you love them so much, but you're thinking, like, how is this happening?
happened?
You know,
Yeah.
and you feel a lot of shame from that. So, like I said, you go to the school counselors and you go to your pediatrician, and you start to realize that it's very hard to access help here in our city, and the wait list is crazy. And at the time back then, you know, there's not a lot of options that you could go to. It's an 18-month wait
Yeah.
to see a psychiatrist.
Wow, it's a long time.
And if you can't afford a psychologist, or if you're, you know, you have a Blue Cross or whatever with your work, you get 6 sessions, you know, and then, you know, so that part was very scary. And in the end, when the system didn't work fast enough, in our opinion, we ended up taking her down for treatment to the States. She had tried to take her life a couple of times, and it was at that part, you know, you're just like,
so
I can't not.
Yeah, we
And-
can't wait. Yeah.
And so, you know, we were fortunate enough to be able to take her down for treatment in the States. Hugely expensive. And people don't understand that in Canada, there is not a treatment facility for children who have mental health challenges. There is if they have an eating disorder or if there's an addiction, but when it's mental illness, there's nothing in Canada to treat a child.
Even today now?
no.
Is that still the case?
no,
There's still nothing.
No.
Oh,
And we
wow.
know
No.
that mental health goes alongside with other, you know, issues too.
Oh, absolutely.
That's,
That, you know,
the most odd part of this whole thing.
Yeah, and you know, and Marley, I will argue with so many people. I said it always starts with something going on in your head, and you choose some unhealthy coping strategies, and then it's just easier to keep the unhealthy coping strategies. So,
Yeah.
so if you could, you know, help these children at an earlier age, you know, we might not need so many adult treatment centers.
Yeah, so let's then talk about your work now. I mean, we'll talk more and
So yeah, so
to lead you to this,
so-
but
Wow.
I
Which
mean, your
part?
journey though, to I guess with your daughter and then
Yeah.
getting her back on a healthy road. How did it change you?
Well, what was interesting is, which is a really great part of the story, and it's not a great part, but she was in treatment, and a lot of times what happens here, and not just here, but you're trying to fix the child. You know, you go to counseling, you whatever, and fix, and then you come back. But we had to take a really hard look at our family and ourselves, and start taking some courses. So I was taking a few courses that I thought I was doing to help her. But in the end, I was really learning a lot about myself and some of the coping strategies that I was using that probably weren't as helpful to her, and how I carried my anxiety, and how that probably wasn't as helpful as it could have been for around my children.
Would you, do you like what are some like examples for that, just for people who are?
You know what? So in the mornings, like for example, in the mornings, if you're, it's really, and I know it's hard because I mean I live it too. But if you can try to just keep a calm space when you start in the morning, and as an adult, if the first thing you do is you check your emails and you say, oh my God, I've got like 15 work emails I have to answer. Oh, that meeting got changed. So you're already hugely triggered by reading your email before you really start your day. So you're already kind of ramped up of all the stuff that you have to do. Now you're trying to hustle these kids off, and you're a little bit preoccupied because of what you've read. And I'm really trying not to read my emails
Good
first
for
thing in the
you.
morning,
Absolutely.
just to set a better tone for
Tone.
myself.
Yeah.
And I think hindsight, if I
Yeah.
had done that, because my day was always changing with what I did and the demands on that. So, and I'm not saying it was all my fault, but if you could just learn to keep it a little calm.
Yeah.
A lot of families, I'm hearing that they're doing gratitudes in the morning, or they're
Oh, that's
doing
nice.
some mindfulness with
Yeah.
themselves and their children. So if you can do it, find something that works for all of you, especially if you have little kids. If you can start some of these, more grounding exercises early on for both you and your child, you can be.
It makes it better.
Wow.
Yeah, make a big difference.
So now we already know mental illness, not a lot out there to help children.
No.
More and more mental illness being, found in young children, like as young
Yeah.
as 6 years old, whatever.
Yeah.
It's crazy. You kind of think, what stress does a 6-year-old have? But
They have
do.
the stress of the household.
The
Yeah, the
household
stress of the
Probably carry
outside,
the family stress.
and their environment.
and what's going on in the house
Yeah.
too, and
They can't articulate it, but they can feel it.
they can
Yeah.
feel it,
Yeah.
and in a lot of cases, in the work that we do, you're seeing, some domestic violence and really
Yeah.
ramps up anxiety. We've seen them as young as 4 or 5 with high anxiety. These little kids. Some of the schools that we're working with. So what happened for me was when we brought Sarah back to Winnipeg, I was introduced to some people who have mental health challenges. And they lobbed onto Sarah and really started to help us understand her world. So they were people of lived experience. And so there was a couple, and I call them angels, and I have a few angels in my life, that just really started to hang out with her and spend time with her, and it was through an organization in Winnipeg, and it's called Peer Support. And it was amazing because what we started to learn was, okay, what was her mental health challenges and what was bad teenage behavior, because
Right.
she's smart, she can figure it out, she can play the mental health card and go, I'm so stressed, I need a new iPhone. And you fall for it because you're thinking, well, that's going to keep her here. I guess I've got to get a new iPhone. But not to say that, but it was a huge lifesaver. But what would have been better back then would have been a parent to talk to me who had been through it.
The same experience. Yeah.
Because who had walked in similar shoes and to have said, listen, you know what, you're not the worst parent. I've been through similar, and I'm giving you hope because you know what, we're still here. And that, we like to say bumpy is good. That whole bumpy is good. Embrace your life, and we'll help you figure it out. So I changed careers and talked to my business partner to move to Canada. She's Australian.
That's a big sell.
And you'll meet her.
Casually talked her business partner.
We were at a peer conference in Calgary a couple of years ago, and I'm like, we need to start a business, and you need to move to Winnipeg. And she's like, okay. And it was funny because she has the lived experience side of our business. She's amazing. She's worked in 10 countries. She's been implementing peer support in, like I said, 10 countries. The Mental Health Commission of Canada hired her to, she did, it was called Making a Case for Peer Support, and she got to do all the focus groups across Canada. So she started in St. John, and she ended up in Whitehorse, and she interviewed all the peer organizations. And so she's got the street cred. And I just thought, she really needs to be here in Canada because we need a lot more peer support. So she has the lived experience of someone who has mental health challenges, and I bring the parent caregiver side.
Wow.
So your focus is on that adult or young adult, that youth
I talk to parents.
demographic. Okay.
No, we talk to pretty much. So we implement
But
peer
the peer
support.
support is for the.
It's for actually anybody.
Okay.
We do a lot of work in nonprofit organizations, mental health organizations.
So business is mental health
Yes.
and mental wellness.
Mental wellness,
Wellness. And but they do, like, I'll have to interject too.
Yeah, I know,
was
'cause this is my passion.
This is her passion.
My
now.
passion is the
So it's
parent.
really girls like bringing the whole mental illness situation in the open, and they have these online courses.
Yeah, we do.
And they have this team that either have the lived experience of dealing with mental illness
And
issues,
can do that.
or
walk
have a
along.
family member
Yeah.
and have been, on, knowing what the signs are and knowing how to have gone through it. So I think the big part of it is that all of the people on their team have that lived experience.
But yeah, so in our business, what we do is we do a lot of work online, and we have what Kristen and I are most excited about is we're launching in January an online parent support group, and it's through the Zoom platform.
Yeah,
so you
Zoom.
can choose to.
You know Zoom.
Yeah, I love Zoom.
Learn about Zoom.
And the great part is you can choose to show your face, or you can
Yeah.
choose to not.
Right.
You
Yeah.
can participate, or
you
you
can just
cannot,
listen.
or you
Yeah.
can just listen. So and there's no judgment.
Sorry, Charlotte, this is for parents.
Yeah, but parents can be caregivers and they can be grandparents. So we're finding a lot of it's whatever your family looks like. But
Yeah.
for Kirsten and I, we talk to parents.
Okay.
We have lots of other people who work with us that talk to individuals, or we've got some young people who do peer support for the young ones. But that our wheelhouse is talking to parents. So that's
So
where we're
let's,
most.
I want to
let's
hear.
get- jump into the conversation, Kirsten.
Sure.
If you want to share,
Everything.
first of all, share your story on how you came together, and I guess your personal story.
Yeah, well, my story is very similar to Charlotte's. Charlotte and I always say we should have met about 8 years ago. Charlotte's a little more ahead of myself, and I have 2 beautiful daughters, and I have one daughter who has struggled with complex mental health issues since she was about 11. And after being in the system in Manitoba and Winnipeg for some time, or a few years, we made the decision to leave Canada and find a higher level of care because, as Charlotte says, if you're an adolescent, let's say 15 years old, and unless you have an addiction or a severe eating disorder, because that was part of our story as well, but where you needed to be hospitalized, there's no long-term treatment, no long-term care, no inpatient long-term care.
In Canada.
In Canada.
So, and just a side note on that, should I go into that very briefly, Charlotte?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it's really important.
Very briefly. So my story changed government policy here in Manitoba. And once my daughter was safe and our house was up for sale to pay for the very expensive cost of long-term treatment, I got to know the Minister of Health, and through lobbying the Minister of Health, I was able to change policy and apply for out-of-province funding as a parent. Because until then, you had to be a physician.
Yeah.
And so upon my application that I put together for 3 months at my dining room table, I won. So we were the first adolescent in Manitoba to be funded to leave our province because we could prove that we've exhausted all resources.
Oh, wow.
Such treatment doesn't exist. It was a life-threatening condition.
Yeah.
And likely she would not have survived.
How long ago was this?
That was 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
So now, have other parents come forward and applied? Or
so
is this one
is
time
something.
only?
No, so I like to call Kirsten the Aaron Brockovich of our city, but actually our country, because since what Kirsten has been able to do since then, we have now helped.
I've actually lost count, to be honest, but I'm going to say 16.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's a huge
Wow.
amount of
Different
people.
provinces.
and we've done 3 different provinces. We just had our first Jordan's Principal, so
Yeah.
a child go down fully funded.
Yeah, I do the process
Yeah.
for them. I get approached by not only parents, but by physicians,
Yeah.
Yes.
MLAs.
Yeah, and the head of psychiatries. Yeah, so
Yeah.
we're getting, and we.
I taught fitness for 21 years, and I used to boss around a group of people, and then all of a sudden I changed careers. But and that's how Charlotte and I found each other. So
And how's your daughter now?
my daughter's doing really, really well. My whole family is doing
Exactly.
well, because if you have a child or
Yes.
somebody in your family who's struggling,
Yeah.
Your whole family is, like Charlotte said, you're struggling.
You're only as
Can't
happy
imagine.
as your saddest
How,
child, right?
how is your husband through all of this?
We're still married. I'm really lucky. My husband has been completely on board with everything we have done. We've been very much a team, whereas
Yeah.
Charlotte and I see a lot of families that don't make a
Split.
true set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were
It's hard.
really lucky.
Yeah.
When I told him we have to sell our house. it took him a day, but he did come back, and I was like, "You're right. We need
Yeah.
to sell her."
So when you said it was life-threatening, I know, Charlotte, you kind of intimated with Sarah,
Yeah.
she was a cutter, and so for your daughter,
You know, my daughter tried to take her life more than once, and my daughter self-harmed in many ways. Physical self-harm with cutting or burning, but also with anorexia. And ultimately, at the end of the day, my daughter is completely symptom-free, and she lives with bipolar disorder, and she is doing amazing. However, that's a very difficult thing to diagnose in adolescence.
Yeah.
right?
So unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but it wasn't until she was 18 that
Yeah.
that diagnosis, which was a game changer,
Yeah.
was finally brought into place. So we're so lucky.
Lucky.
And she is such an incredible, talk about humanity.
incredible.
She's going to do amazing things. And she's just an incredible young lady. Not only that daughter, but my other daughter who witnessed,
All of this.
you know,
Yes.
what happened in
Wow.
our home
Yeah.
and what we went through, who, you know,
Lived through
That's-
all of it.
lived
through
through
all
all
of
of
it,
it.
yes.
So that in itself is a story of humanity.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, the great part is that both of you now are working towards to helping. So that's
Yeah.
16 other kids, right?
That's
That,
incredible.
that now have the opportunity to have a full life.
Yeah.
Whereas-
and we're
yeah.
not stopping there.
No, no.
We're, we're not stopping there, but also the piece, I call it a parallel process,
Yeah.
because as a child struggles, what happens to a parent is absolutely heartbreaking. And
That's
your own
probably
mental
double.
health
Yeah.
Oh, your own mental health.
really suffers.
So you said that you taught gym or
I
active
know.
fitness class, and I mean that's, you know, everybody says mental
That's the
wellness,
best for your
fitness,
wellness.
for yourself.
Yeah, for myself, you know, for my experience was for the first couple of years I had a secret because I didn't want anyone to know.
Yeah.
Not because of my ego, but because that was, I wanted to protect my child.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then because hers also, her struggles also were very physical because of, you know, self-harm and
Yeah.
anorexia. You know, it was impossible to hide that, right? So lots of people, I took judgment from a lot of people. A lot of
Yes,
people like to
yeah.
talk and all that. So
Yeah.
then I spent some time figuring out how did I cause this? Everybody else is doing so great, and how come, you know, what did I do wrong as a parent? And then you get to, so another few years go by, and you get to a point where you're like, this is not a parenting issue, and
Yeah.
those who judged us in the past aren't very bright.
Yeah.
And they're not, right? So,
Yeah.
so we've been through the gamut, and then and our little family is just so close, and we're so blessed. And family
Yeah.
actually even shifted a little bit for us, although my little family is still very tight. But
Yeah.
people that you thought were really good friends
I would
and distant
imagine.
family
Yeah.
weren't there for you, and then people who were. They became your family. So it's quite interesting, but it's a parallel process. And as your child goes on their journey towards wellness,
Yeah.
a parent also needs support.
Yeah.
And they have been through a lot. And they are running on empty. And they need to sit across from a table and look at someone who they feel looks like they have it all together.
Yeah.
And their daughter is clearly, or son is clearly in a place of health. And the hope that you get from that is
It's huge.
huge. And that's what Charlotte and I do today.
Yeah.
We love to talk with parents, own our story, and you can own a story without getting into details.
No.
You know,
And there's, I think, with both of you, a sense of trust, which I think must be really key
Yeah.
for anybody, you know, that's vulnerable and coming to you
Yeah.
with this problem, is that they have to trust
Yeah.
you.
Well, and there's huge confidentiality.
Yeah.
Kirsten and I run into people that we've been working with, and we always wait for them to approach us if we're out in public, and because they're in their journey and
Yes.
where they want to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the one thing is, because Kirsten and I remember those days. In my story, Sarah ran away, and it was very public in our city. So at that point, our family little secret was out, and we were doing whatever we could to save her at that time. And so that was the point when I started to be able to come forward. But for a lot of families, they're still hiding that shame.
How do we get over it? Like,
Well,
this
we
is
like
like
to talk-
2020. You know,
Well-
we talk about everything.
Well, we like to talk about, breaking down the stigma of mental illness
Yeah,
and talking about mental health on a continuum. Everybody has mental health.
Yeah.
We have our bad days and we have our good
Yep.
days, and you fall somewhere in the middle. And if we can start having more and more open conversations around that, and also just trying to be open and honest with your struggles and what's going on at home. And a lot of times people just assume the mental health challenges are you personally, but there's so much going on at home. Like we have friends who are caregiving for their senior parents, and they've got young children that they're trying to raise, and they are stressed to the nines.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
And there's lots of stuff like that. And if we can just be supportive and understanding, and just say, hey, what's going on for you, and how can we support you?
I think part of the stigma, it just comes from judgment, right? So
Yeah.
people who have never walked a few steps in those shoes just think, well, this will never happen to me, and it's just like, don't think that.
Yeah, that's
nobody is. Everyone is vulnerable to these.
Oh, absolutely.
Incidents on the spectrum.
Yeah.
And
And you can do everything possible
Of course
as a
you can.
parent.
Completely.
Yeah. And that,
Everything.
to me, again, that comes back especially for mothers, that we are always under scrutiny and
Exactly.
always subject to judgment about whatever it is that we're doing with our kids, whether it's right, wrong, whatever. And as opposed to just saying, you know what, I don't know what you're going through. I understand it's a hard time.
Yes.
What can I do for you?
Yeah.
Can I take your other child today? Can I bring you groceries? Can I come wash your dishes?
Absolutely.
Whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Is to not judge, but to say, what can I do for you while
How can
you
I help?
are in trouble?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I don't know what you're going through, but there must be something I can do
Yeah.
to help you right now.
So I think, having
This is
said
a
that,
lot.
we all need to go and ask how each other are and help each other along the way. You know what? Thank you so much, Charlotte.
It's an amazing story.
Yes.
I so appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yes,
so much.
robynpriest.com is the website.
Yeah.
Live your truth, and you can talk to either Charlotte or Kristen. Thank you so much for
share,
sharing.
reach out.
Share it with your friends.
Reach
share
out.
it with
Reach
your
out.
people.
Yeah.
Please reach out.
This
Share it with your
conversation
Come back
doesn't.
to the
Yes.
Hue Crew.
Yes, come back to you.
Cheers,
Love
you
us,
guys.
like
Thank
us,
you, Charlotte.
continue the conversation.
Thanks, Tracy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten.
Gotcha.